Okay, just wanted to talk about some reasons why you probably don't want to buy a house when the market is, or even has a chance of going down in value. It's a real problem because if you buy a house and the market goes down in value, keep in mind you can't move. You're stuck because if you try to sell that house, you have to write a check to the bank for your negative equity in the house, plus 6 or 7% for the commissions and closing costs. So that's a huge problem. People are used to houses appreciating, but if they go the other direction, you're in big trouble. And you might be like, well, wait a second, I'm selling it, even if I'm selling it for less, it's worth a lot. Well, you've borrowed all that money, most likely. Most people only put down 5%. If you put a bunch of money down, you might get some of your money back, but not much of it. So if you put, 20% down, so 20,000 per 100,000, you're probably going to lose all that if the housing market goes down at all. I mean, just on a $500,000 house, you would lose all of it and then some. You'd still have to write a check if you had to sell it at the same price that you bought it for. So that's a really good reason right there to not buy a house. Another good reason when the market may go down. And if your market hasn't started going down yet, you might want to wait a little while because as you'll see in my previous videos, episodes 1, 2, and 3, there's a good chance that it is going down. You just don't know it yet. You need to wait until comps come out, which is 90 days after they happen, more or less. We'll just call it 90 days. So another thing that people don't realize when they buy a house is that there's a lot of other costs that you just don't think about. You have to pay for all the maintenance. You have to pay for replacement of what they call capital items like HVAC systems, heaters, roofs, and those do add to the basis of your house, and I'll explain how basis works if people want to know. But it has nothing to do with the amount of money you've borrowed on the house. So, anyways, another discussion. But you have to pay for all that stuff, and then these days you have to pay for property insurance, which in many, many parts of the country has doubled or tripled in the last few years. If you live in Florida, you probably can't even get property insurance anymore. There's a state fund to supply property insurance, but it excludes a lot of things. It may exclude wind, it may exclude floods, which is exactly what you're paying for insurance for. And so you may not be able to get insured in, say, Florida, for instance, the property values are currently actively dropping because people they can't, if they have a loan, the loan requires you to have insurance. If you don't have a loan, you can go without insurance, but you're going to have to rebuild your house when you get hit by a hurricane, and it's probably just a matter of time. So in California, you got wildfire risk, and so it's really hard to get. It's very expensive to get fire insurance, but probably a more realistic argument about that is that insurance just on average is based on the value of the house, and the average house in California is $860,000 in 2024. So your insurance is going to be a lot. You may not realize how much that is going to be. So if your value is $860,000, your insurance is going to be probably a little less than 10 grand a year, but it's probably going to be between 6 and 10 grand a year. And that's assuming you don't live in a risky area that has fires or other natural disasters hitting. In addition to that, you have your property tax. So just for just rough numbers, just use 1.2%. So take the price of your home, which it's going to get set at the value you purchase your home for, the price of the home you want to purchase, times 0.012. That's 1.2%, and that'll tell you what your annual, more or less, property tax is going to be. Confirm what the property tax is. Use the exact percentage if you can, but realize there's also special assessments and other things that get tacked on, like school districts and a Melrose tax and other things that get special bonds that were approved by the taxpayers to get tacked on to your property insurance. So all that stuff really adds up, and people don't account for that when they buy a house, taxes, maintenance, and insurance. And so you need to account for that and realize that that's going to make it, in most cases, it's going to make it a lot less affordable than just renting, even at higher rents. So especially if something breaks. Now you can get insurance for that, but the insurance is expensive too, for the home warranties. And a lot of them are turning out to be fraudulent. They exclude everything, and what they say a lot of the time is that whenever you file a claim, they deny it and say, well, that's not normal wear and tear. So if you don't have perfect maintenance records for that capital item in your house, which would be your heater or your roof or whatever, then they're going to say it's not normal wear and tear. You didn't maintain it properly, so we're not going to pay for it. So I always like to say that insurance companies are in the business of not paying claims. That's their business. Avoid paying claims. And so if you think about it that way, it's a lot easier. You really have to read the fine print with insurance, and that's a big factor. And then if you have association fees, well, that makes it even harder. And that goes back to the problem of a lot of people think, if I have to move, I'll just make my house a rental. Well, you're not going to make it a rental in most markets. Most markets, you're going to lose a lot of money. Out of pocket, you're going to lose a lot of money if you make it a rental. Like the rental amount for the house will be half of all of your expenses once you include all those expenses that I just mentioned. So you can just figure out, and don't kid yourself on how much your house is worth on the rental market. You can look on, Zillow or Redfin. If you can get an MLS printout, you can see what people are asking in your area, and you can pretty much figure out what your rent is. Do that number times 12 and subtract all those expenses, and don't forget to add up your payments every year too, and you'll see that you're losing money on almost any home that you purchase as a home. They don't pencil from an investment standpoint, and they haven't for over a generation now in most markets. There is some markets that are the exception, and those are markets that have relatively robust rents, but that have very low prices. But those are generally really undesirable cities that you don't want to live in, or maybe you do. Maybe you want to wait as a market's gentrifying, like Detroit. That's a good example. And maybe it will come around. I personally, life's too short for me to wait for a market to gentrify or get better. I don't like using the word gentrify because it's turned into a bad word, even though it's a great way to describe a neighborhood that's improving because of private investment for the most part. So anyways, those are some reasons why you don't want to buy a house in a potentially decreasing market value environment. So just some quick thoughts, and let me know if you have comments or questions, and consider just renting if that is more affordable, which it most likely will be if you factor in all the costs. And invest, of course, max out your retirement plan, and if you have one, and if you don't, start a traditional IRA and max that out, so you can deduct that from your income every year, so you'll save some money on taxes. About a third of what you put in it, you'll save on taxes in most people's tax situation, but that's very generalized statement as well. So anyways, let me know if you have any questions or comments, and if you want me to talk about any other subject, anything with regard to real estate, and if I think it's a strong enough, closely related subject, I'll talk about that too, assuming that I'm qualified to have an opinion about whatever you ask me. If I don't feel like I'm qualified to have an opinion, then I'm not going to make a video about it. But have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.